All right, this is Calvin Ball from Manifold, aka Ernie, Straight Climb, Reynolds. I had various names over there. I've been really involved in this LK-99 market and wanted to talk about it and sort of relate some of the sort of deeper issues that it's led me to think about, like philosophically about belief and society and the world and things like that. It's been super interesting. So why am I so interested in this? Well, I didn't know at first why. I gradually worked it out, and it all makes sense why this is like one of the most interesting things that's happened in a while. But here's the sort of simple version. When there's a conflict between people in the real world, like about should we build more houses, or where does COVID come from, or anything like that, we generally have this pattern where everyone just politicizes it everything right away. So whatever you say, somebody will say, "Oh, that sounds like something they'd say on Fox News," or that's a SJW like post version, or um, whether they're on your side or the other side, it doesn't matter. Both sides use this as a way to not actually engage with the argument. So you can't refine your argument by talking to somebody that believes with you because it's like over immediately. They don't challenge your facts. And the other side, you're not making any dent, and in fact, you're losing your credibility with them. Huge problem, right? But in this case, this is a situation that we will know the answer. Like this thing is a superconductor, or there's something physically interesting here, or there isn't, and we'll know the answer like relatively soon. And it's non-political. Like it's super far downstream of the laws of physics. A million layers deep, right? Um, it has no implications. Whether this is true or not. Like it wouldn't mean anything big. So we can just discuss it. And I think the behavior of the people in the comments and sort of the crowd idea of like how much they believe this and what causes them to believe it or disbelieve it is really interesting. So, brief history of the market. Um, a lot of hype, a lot of new people coming in here. Kind of goes down to like 14%. I started buying Node this entire time, and I ended up buying like a bunch of mana just to push the price down. I don't know why. Like I kept over investing. I mean, portfolio wise, like if you look at my life history portfolio, I was extremely cautious here. Like for the last 8 months, never had more than like 5 or 10% of my net worth in one market. Just very, very, very smooth changes. Like no big deal at all. But when this came, I just went insane. Like I bid no's here. I was actually negative again, shot up, and then recently with the new drop, it shot up even more. So, so what caused me to get so interested in this? Well, I started to think, how can I engage with the people that are like the strong yeses? And then I started to think like, why am I so no, right? And then I would think, how am I going to get out of this market? Um, because I was really worried. Like, around this time, like I bought no's here, and then, or even here, I bought a lot of no's, and then the price went up here, and I was like, I'm losing money. And so I'd begin to, come up with my arguments for like I should get out, I should take a loss, and I would just get so convinced that I was not wrong, that this thing is going to zero, or at least whatever, as I say, like 2%, 5%, right? But much, much lower, that I would just buy more. So, far from divesting myself, I would literally like buy mana and then throw it all into no side. Um, and why was that? My background is not in physics. Like I did physics in high school and I read a lot of sci-fi, but no professional or even university level classes. But I have a big interest in how people think and cults, mind control. Like read a lot about Scientology and Christianity, Jehovah's Witnesses, like just and also narcissism. Like thinking about how people influence each other, people, but not just with the cult of the evil actor. It's in fact there's something inside of people. Well, I'll get to my explanation of this, but I think there's something inside of people that makes them want to believe, and in fact, in a sense, automatically makes people believe things. It varies by person, right? But based on their history and their needs. But it's shocking. So let me give you an example. A big percent of the Earth thinks that they have a personal relationship with the creator of the universe. So they literally go home at night, close their eyes, and talk to the creator of the universe. That's a pretty big claim, Like, don't think about it in the world of Christianity, but just like think about it in the abstract. Like, what are they really saying? They're like, I personally talk to the creator of the universe and he knows me. This is the dude that can do anything, right? And yet, whenever you ask them, like, prove it, just do something unusual, do something unexpected, they never can prove it. So, from a Bayesian perspective, like, when you meet someone that literally knows the creator of the universe, what percent of the time is there some meta rule or some reason, very convoluted reason, such that they are forbidden from proving it? And that is a plausible situation. There could be a meta rule, like maybe, in some universes there is a meta rule like, in order to make life more interesting, God has adopted this rule: he will never prove his existence to anybody. But there doesn't have to be such a rule. Like, in our universe, everyone says there's such a rule, but I can easily imagine a universe where that is not the case, where God regularly interferes all the time at the beck and call of these people that claim that they know him. So, but no one ever challenges. Like, if someone says, I believe in God, it's like, prove it right now. Like, make that tree catch on fire. Like, do it right now. Oh, you didn't do it. I guess you don't. I guess there's no God. To me, that's actually a convincing argument, at like 90%. So, but like, everyone thinks this is my argument right now is insane because we're so used to accepting this frame for thousands of years that people who make these insanely easy to disprove claims should not be challenged, and we should just believe them anyway. So to give another example, imagine someone says, I can fly. And they say, here's a paper with the replication steps for my flying technology, my flying mental skill. It takes 4 years. It's, there's some blurry bits, like it's not fully explained clearly, but if you do it with sincerity and, spend all this money, you'll be able to fly. And so you take it and you're like, I'm going to do this. 4 years later, you fail to fly. And you go back to them and they're like, oh, you didn't have enough faith, or you're the wrong type of person. You got to try it again. Or, oh yeah, there's this sectionalism, like sect, divergence of different doctrines and beliefs. And now there's like 50 different versions of how to fly. None of them work, but everybody's constantly pursuing them. Is this legitimate? Like, is this the right way that we should handle a claim like that? Obviously not, right? Because you're not primed to think of flying as like a thing that thou shalt not challenge. The obvious answer is just say, if you claim you can fly, just fly right now. Just fly. It's easy. Just friggin' fly. And sure, there could be wires, they could be cheating it, but it never gets to that point. They never even do the initial, like, pseudo proof that it's real. So when a dude comes to you and says, I have a superconductor, well, we'll get to that. So okay, so I was looking at this market and it's like, I really want to get out, but then I'm thinking this stuff and I'm like, okay, so let's think about what these guys' life is like, right? 20 years ago, early 2000s, I guess 1999 is when it really started. Every morning, some of these guys wake up, get out of bed, get cleaned up, go to the lab, turn on the equipment, open your lab book. What am I going to do today? I'm going to do an experiment with the goal of finding a superconductor. You do this for 20 years and, people come and go, your professor dies, new people come, etc. Some of you get professorships, you're getting grants. I don't know how they're supporting themselves. 20 years times 7 guys, partially, so total is not that much. But okay, so this all happens. At the end of it, somehow the paper gets released, and allegedly you have a superconductor. Sort of background statement here is, when we're thinking of these cases, like we're doing Bayesian analysis of like, let's imagine the yes case is true. Like, this is actually true. This isn't just like the market will resolve yes. This is like, there really is a room temperature ambient pressure superconductivity material. Like, they really have it. It really exists in Korea. And there may even be samples of it in the United States right now. So in that world, sometime in the last few years, you had this, right? So you are living an incredible life because every professional physicist thinks it's impossible. And you wake up in the morning and you look on your bedside table and there's a piece of room temperature superconductor right there. The literal magic object. It's worth billions of dollars if it's real, or at least a Nobel Prize, right? You have it on your bedside table. You're not famous. You're just a random guy living in South Korea. Maybe you don't have a job. I don't know. Maybe you're married. I don't know. Nobody knows you. You walk down the street. Nobody knows you. You never get interviewed. Nothing. You're living with this for years. You have something. Have you personally ever had anything this important? Like, something so significant that will change the world. And yet, the paper comes out. The paper comes out here. A week passed. Another week passed. During this phase, all your old high school friends are seeing these articles in South Korea saying like, oh, I recognize that name. Is that my friend that like sat next to me in homeroom, or he was always very smart in the physics class? It was that guy. Let me call him up, get him on their version of Facebook or however they communicate, and say like, hey man, like I saw this. This is amazing. What a great discovery. Like, it's so cool. You're getting all these invites. People are reaching out to you, I assume, right? Now maybe you don't care. Maybe you're a cold, maybe all 7 of them are super cold fish. They don't care about this at all. They just care about money. They just care about this or that, advancement of science, etc. Or maybe they're anonymous. Maybe they don't have a Facebook over there. Okay, there's ways around it, but something's happening. And then here, Now the replications are coming in. The guy on Twitter is saying, I couldn't replicate. Professional labs are saying I couldn't replicate. Oh, that's kind of bad. I mean, you have to wake up and, like, what do you do, right? There's journalists swarming the lab. There's random people from YouTube showing at the lab. You're still going in every day. You're still grinding. But you have the superconductor. And the news is saying you don't have it. They're kind of hinting that you're a liar, that you fake, you're a scammer, or you're just stupid. You tricked yourself. But you are smart. In this world, we're imagining you really have it. You genuinely are a genius in this world. You genuinely have a huge ego that you deserve, because you do deserve a Nobel Prize, because you found this room temperature superconductor. But yet, this entire time, you never post on Twitter. You never do an interview. You never do anything. One of the researchers, the one at William & Mary, does do an interview, but during the interview, what does he say? If it was me, I would say, oh, like, yeah, I'm sorry you rushed the paper out. Thinking in my mind, like, these guys don't know. I have a piece of the superconductor in my pocket right now. So there is no chance I'm wrong. I don't need to be, persnickety and cantankerous. I will be proven right very, very, very soon. And so I could be the most benevolent and gentle person in the world. It's like, yeah, really sorry the paper was not clear. Step 4 should have been this. We actually met this temperature. And like, I know it's confusing. We're working on a new paper. Like, you guys are going to get it. We want to share this with the world. Because after all, we prepared this paper. We submitted the paper. It's not like we're some secret, commercial entity. Like, we're trying to get this tech out there, right? But that's not what he said. What he said was, you guys that have failed to reproduce it in 2 weeks, I tried for 5 years. So try harder, please. Is that what you would say if you were a future Nobel Prize winner? That's a little surprising to me. Why are you, like, it's just so weird. I mean, you are going to be on stage in Sweden. You're going to fly back to South Korea, get out, millions of people cheering for you. South Korea will be known. You'll be a hero of the nation. The president will invite you over. Everything's going to be great. So would you really say, you guys are lazy, you guys need to try harder, I am a good guy? I was smart enough to be persistent for 20 years. You weren't. Stop criticizing me. Would you say that? I wouldn't. Maybe he would. Maybe that's his personality. I don't know. I mean, maybe he's just disagreeable like that. But I would not say that. I would already take on my senior, elite, respected scientist role. So that's a bit weird. The other thing is, this whole period, the other researchers are not saying anything. Nothing leaks, right? There's a rumor that they're helping out the India lab with private emails. But why are they doing private emails? Like, why don't they just put it on Twitter? Just, if they're correcting the paper, just tell people. So this is what I'm thinking in this period. And I'm like, okay, here's the other thing, right? Like, you've been working on this 20 years. One of you works at William & Mary. You have physical objects. Why not take the physical object in your pocket, fly to MIT, talk to your contact and be like, look, man, I'm sorry to bug you, but do you have an hour? Can I use a lab with you for an hour? And you just watch me. You watch what I do. I know it's not going to make any sense to you, but just watch what I do and then answer me after that. And it's your good friend. Like, you were his advisor. He's, he went on to success, or vice versa. And you take it out and you do the test of resistance and the Messenger effect or whatever. And he's sitting there and his jaw is dropping more and more and more. And you're like, no questions. Just watch me, record it, watch me. And at the end, he's like, I don't understand what I just saw. Do it again. But let's use this better equipment. Like, John, can I use your good lab over there? Yes, please use my good lab. Okay, now we're going to the real deal. This is the really, really high-tech equipment over here. Do that again. You do the whole process again. His jaw is on the floor. This is like an MIT PhD professor. He looks at you and he's like, is this what I think it is? And you're like, it just may be. I've been working on that for 20 years. He tears up and he looks in your eye and he's like, I'm happy, good job. Like, I'm happy for you. We need to have a task force. I'm staying all night, calls his friends. 3 of his friends show up. He's like, can I borrow the sample? And you're like, I'm sorry, you can't borrow the sample. Can you stay? Yes, I'll stay. So you stay all night. 3 of his grad students re-verified. Their minds are blowing, right? This could have happened 4 years ago when they first discovered it. This could happen any time in the 20 years. And so when the paper comes out and all the journalists are saying this is crap, and Nature comes out with a paper saying you're a liar, you're a cheater, um, you're a scammer, not a single person stood up and said, I saw something in a lab I could not believe. And I asked them to show it to me, and they did. Not a single person stood up for that in Korea, in South Korea, or in the United States. That's a bit weird. So you're saying you had this for multiple years and you weren't able to convince anybody? It's possible. It's definitely possible. There are people whose personality is such that they would behave that way. But most people who know they're going to win a Nobel Prize, their name is on the paper's out, especially once the paper's out. Before the paper's out, okay, I could see like not wanting to share. In that case, you demo it, but you don't share the material. And you don't show, what base tech you were using so people don't copy the research. That's fine. I understand that. But once the paper's out, you would do that. But again, there's many ways this, the fact that they didn't do this doesn't mean anything, right? It's totally fine. Like maybe they shifted their focus. Rather than trying to get scientific credit, they're switching to a commercial approach. So they're in negotiations with lawyers, or maybe they're suing each other. They could easily be suing each other. That's a very good reason not to say anything in public. But, still, like, I mean, how long are we going to wait, right? Like, people were saying, okay, so this is going, so these are the reasons I had. What was the other big reason? So the lack of the sample, lack of clarification. There's actually like quite a bunch of them. Yeah, so sending out samples and having somebody vouch for you are the main ones. Okay, so this all happens, and then the market kind of zooms in here. So we get this like weird flat period, right? And during this period, everybody's market making on both sides. So somebody's like, sell for 15, buy for 12, gigantic limit orders. Like this, right? We're kind of doing it now, but this is nothing compared to what we used to see. I mean, this is 10K, buy at 10, pretty good. It used to be a billion times worse than this, maybe 10 to 50 times worse than this. So there's these huge walls like trading volatility, market making. But today, or I guess last night, so at some point we got a channel in the Discord talking about LK-99, and also Scott Alexander published a post saying, it's fake, obviously. And that sort of precipitated a large movement starting last night. So let's see. It's a bit hard to see what's going on. So this is the first one. We dropped to 7. This is like, we're all like literally in the chat discussing it. Somebody jokes like, whoa, like the price should go down, right? Because we have common knowledge via Scott that this is true. Then we're all in the chat and people are saying like, yeah, none of us believes it either. Like, we're not just like betting no. We're not just heavy duty like no holders. Like, we really don't believe it. And pretty soon all the limit buy orders are gone. There's just a few left. Prices dropping. Go to bed, overnight we get even lower. And here we are today with like some like fake volume basically at 7. Like if you look at the orders, it's sort of market is 7, but like there's no depth down to 5. And there's, I guess, there's not much pressure down below 7 either yet. Although I think people's mana is like maxed out. So anyway, so that's sort of the reasoning. So I wanted to go over some of the comments. Okay, so why is this interesting? So let's go back to like the philosophical religious aspect of this. So so I was making all these like Bayesian arguments, right? And people get so mad because people say, how can you, this is bias, this is prejudice, like evaluating the tone of his response when he's speaking in Korean. It's like, well, I wasn't evaluating the linguistic tone, I was evaluating the argumentation tone. He's that guy who got interviewed, he's setting up a future where this is disproven and he has a psychological crutch for why he was right after all. And he'll just until the day he dies, he's going to be saying, you guys didn't try hard enough to get it. You didn't try hard enough to replicate my paper. But the mind flip here is, it's not on us. It's not on us to replicate, man. You can trivially prove this is true. That's the thing. If proving it were true was hard, fair enough. No, you claim you have a reproducible method to create more of this stuff. So what I think happened is they screwed around in the lab for 20 years, staying super late and being very obsessive and one-upping each other and challenging each other and doubting each other and wanting to disprove each other and disprove the world in their own little bubble. And they created some weird stuff. And, you'd get these weird results and then you'd go to sleep or you'd go drinking and then you'd come home, go to sleep the next day, go back to the office. Measure it again, you get different measurement, and you don't know why. And this happens repeatedly, and you're like, did I measure it right last night? I think I did, but did I? And which one was it again? Because it's all just a piece of rock. Like, there's no labels, there's no video cameras. You know, reproducibility of scientific procedure is not guaranteed by any means. So they might have a few good rocks, or they may have memories of having had good rocks and the rocks are gone, and so that's what I think is happening. Um, okay, so yeah, let's go back a bit. So I've the other big thing. Okay, actually, there's two things I want to talk about. So we have um, the number one thing is this derivative market. So pretty early on, I created this tag called derivative markets, where we just created a whole bunch of like meta markets on stuff related to this. My favorite one is this bail. It's this bailing one. So this was identified the top yes holders. I can look at who are the current top yes holders. So identified the top yes holders, screenshotted it. This is all public information. It's not like doxing. Like, this is all public. And I said, will any of them bail before this date? And then I bid the market really far down, and I put in limit orders at the bottom too. So if they wanted to bail, they could just like buy this up because I made it cheap. They could buy it up, make a bunch of profit, assuage their ego, and get the heck out. And this guy actually did get out, although it wasn't actually legit get out. I think it was like a day trader that was actually regularly flipping both sides. But what I discovered from this is that most of these people are either not on the site anymore at all or are going deeper. Like, Kattni's gone significantly deeper. A lot of these people have gone significantly deeper, even during, this dead phase, right? And it's like, why? Why do you guys have such strong belief in this? And why are these like signals of falseness, like lack of interviews, obscure replication procedures? Why are these things not making a difference to you? There's so much history here that I don't care about, but I'm not going to go over all of the floating rock stuff, the Twitter stuff, the failed replications. I'm mostly focused on like the religious aspect. This was my Bayesian argument here that basically, like, as you eliminate pieces of the search space, you have to constantly reevaluate the likelihood. So the modern version of this is like, this is the anti like data science argument, basically, where far from there being like a minimum amount of data to get like confidence interval. In fact, every single bit of data you get is legitimate to adjust your estimate of what reality is. So if you hire somebody and they're late the first day of work, that is one bit of data. It's like not scientifically significant, not statistically significant. Get out of here, dude. One day of work, late on the first day of work, the person's probably late. Like, if they're so late, they like missed an important meeting, for example, or something. Whereas if that were like the 1,000th bit of data, like, they worked for 5 years, never late, and they're late one day, right? Same bit of data, but means something very different, because you don't know the base rate in the first case. So your initial estimate of what the base rate is from this single piece of data has got to be very high. And that's completely fair, right? Because like, they literally were late, so it's okay to assume that they're late often. So this has been kind of fun, and it just made me realize like this style of argument, and people just completely do not accept this style of argument, like, at all. They're just like, I don't get it. This is a bunch of bunk. People get really mad and like personally attack me. They call me a troll, and it's very weird because I'm not really picking on individuals. Like, I'm responding to claims that individual people make, but I'm not saying you're dumb, you're a troll, you're stupid. Like, I'm just trying to understand like what makes you think, that it will be a yes. This Nature article came out, which actually was like a complete headshot. It's saying that not only is it fake, but we know why it's fake. But people just kept saying, it's not convincing. It's a science journalist. Nature doesn't publish science journalists that are not validated by like 10 smart dudes. And sure, Nature, like, they've made mistakes. They can make mistakes. I'm not saying they're perfect, but the big pattern of the people in the comments was they were special pleading every piece of evidence. They were doing two things. Okay, they were saying, sure, negative evidence came in, but there's still a story where the thing is true. But I never disagreed with that, right? There's always a story where things are true. I can always make up a story where like things are true. It's fine. Like, say it replicates. I could just say, well, they're all lying, and the New York Times is lying, and everybody's lying. No matter what, you can always back out by saying like all the data that I received is a lie. It's being controlled by upstream. So being able to make up a story, it doesn't mean anything, right? You have to look at it statistically. I mean, imagine you're playing poker and the guy's like raise, 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 shove. Like, yes, he might be bluffing. Yes, maybe he clicked the wrong button, you know. But like the guy's a pro, right? So he can't be clicking the wrong button very often. It's not stable. Like you can't simultaneously suppose I'm playing against someone that regularly clicks the wrong all-in button when they actually have a bad hand, and they're a pro and they have millions of dollars. Like it can happen. There can be pros that misclick, but statistics is real. Like distributions are what the universe works on. It is literally a distribution. Like that's what you're looking at. You're not looking at like it's actually yes, it's actually no. So people totally don't think this way, and like these arguments were not effective at convincing people. People just saying like go into science. Like I don't care about science. I'm not. Um, I'm not arguing scientifically. So yeah. So this, I mean, I just feel sorry for these people too because like some of them at least, I mean, they're sincere and like I want superconductivity to be real too, right? But why are they like not able to cut their losses? That's been a big mystery to me. So here I'm just like, I mean, I am trolling here. Like, I think from their perspective, it feels like trolling, but it's also just my opinion. Like, I think the market will lose 10% relative a week. Like, it'll go 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. I mean, it'll just go down forever, for the next few months until we hit areas where it's very hard to go down. They get so mad, and then people start to like reverse minimize me. This is the like, why are you such a tryhard argument? It's like, why are you being so serious, bro? Like, what's the big deal, bro? All right, man. I mean, it's a big deal because I care. Like, I'm not ashamed to admit that I care. This is very interesting. This is conflict. This is what life's all about. So yeah, I do care about conflict. I want to understand it, and I want to understand why people think the way they do. I occasionally get baited here, which is annoying. Like, I should just stop doing that. So, what else happened here? Yeah, some fun, like, huge comments. I am like poking the bear. I admit it. Oh, this one is interesting, right? In this one, I use like a very, very, relatively weak argument. I think it still has some value, but it's definitely not my strongest argument. But again, like, I don't believe that all arguments have to be infinitely strong. This is more about just the tone. And the end of this, I literally get accused of being prejudiced because, yeah, I mean, I didn't really understand like why. Let's see. Um, but it's just interesting to see people's like rationalizations, right? Um, I think I am being slightly unethical here in that from my belief system, I personally believe that making people defend their beliefs actually makes them believe those things more. I think that's kind of backed up. So, under the guise of like helping people and like challenging people and giving them the freedom to think about changing their beliefs, I'm challenging them. I actually think it makes it worse for them in the near term because their name is on the line. They don't want to be seen as flipping and like giving up. Um, they don't even admit this. So like they're not calling me on it. They're not saying like they're not accusing me by saying, why are you preventing my freedom by putting my name on a list of yeses? They never say that because they can't conceptualize that they could be wrong, basically. Um, but I think it's so from my perspective, why do I do that? Well, there's an audience, so the audience matters. And I think in the long term, having these debates is going to be like intellectually beneficial for people involved. You know, being wrong, or if I was wrong, like if I'm wrong on this, it's going to be a very significant thing to think back on because even this video itself will contain hints where I'm like starting to go down a road, starting to go down an alley of thought that would lead me to realize like, Ernie, you were actually wrong in all this crap that you've been saying for an hour. And you need to like check yourself and stop hypnotizing yourself. But in this video, I won't go down there, right? Um, and so, 6 months from now, if LK-99 is real, I'm going to be floating on like a railgun, shooting through space with zero resistivity while thinking like, how could I have been less wrong, right? Like, let's rewatch this video and see what modules or like what thought patterns do I have that are preventing me from seeing the real truth of like there is hope for this. Okay, what else we got? So, oh yeah, so here's the really cool thing. So this guy realized that somebody in the third realized that what's actually going on is no holders believe there is a consensus. So, and I'm in this camp. I believe that now that like nature has spoken out saying it's not real, and 5 or 6 top scientists have said it's not real, and nobody else said anything, that's it, boys. Like that's all you're gonna get. No one's gonna bother doing any more research. I have a this was the one that I think was like the most fair thing, the most fair attempt to like really come to an understanding with people. So I found this article by Scott Aronson where he talks about how he evaluates like these very speculative papers, right? And he uses all kind of metadata, like does the person have a college degree? Do they use text? Do they use like, there's just all this shadiness that can happen. Like don't use text, don't understand the question, result is too strong, conflicts, weasel words, um, no new idea, like no explanation, no like meta explanation of why, like for this LK-99, it's like, okay, you're telling me that completely normal materials in completely normal processes that every lab could do could produce it. Why hasn't it been discovered yet then? Like, if there is a hidden a hidden good superconductor out there, I would expect it to be very hidden because it hasn't been found. Like the one thing we know about it is that it hasn't been found after all this time. So, um, so I shared this paper because like I actually think this is it. Like people who were yeses, they think that the gauntlet's been dropped. 1% of scientists have answered. The other 99% are just still investigating. And that's reasonable. I mean, that's a conceivable way that the world could be. I just don't think it is how the world is based on reading this article. So I shared this article and I was like, hey guys, like actually, I think it's over. Like, no one's really doing any more investigation. This is it. And this led to like some good consequences. I mean, and this one guy created a poll, which I think is great. And the poll reveals that people who think, people who doubt LK-99 think there is a consensus, basically. So it's like 70-30. People who believe in LK-99 don't think there's a scientific consensus. So this is exactly what I was just saying. Like the yesies think that more research is forthcoming. The noes think it's over. And the way to resolve this is to just, first of all, like we can look historically, when big claims come out, because from my point of view, like every day, thousands of huge claims come out. And if someone doesn't respond, it means they don't believe. Because why would you continue doing your research on like some crappy, low level superconductor if you believed or thought plausible at all that some much better superconductor was out, right? Like you'd stop all your research and you'd investigate it. They haven't stopped all their research. That means they don't believe. That's clear to me. But that's not what the yesies think. So I thought this is like very good refinement of what's actually going on, like why there is a disagreement here. Unfortunately, like people didn't really adjust, I mean, maybe this did have something to do with like the subsequent, soon after, like 3 days after this, the price did drop, but none of the major yesies dropped. Um, so, so yeah, that was kind of a good one. Let's see. So this is just me summarizing what I just said. Like, and it also resulted in creating some markets for like, will any of the speakers, are they here? Like, will any of them get invited to a international conference? Like, will any of the LK-7 researchers get invited in the next years? Like, it's low probability. Will LK-99 be mentioned in the Nature table of contents in the next 2 years? Like, low probability. So, like, it's over, guys. Like, I mean, on the other hand, from a Yesi perspective, because they know they're outnumbered, they would expect those all to be low, and they aren't reading anything into it. I just hope that one of them would give them even better odds than the 10-1, and then they would be able to profit on that and then see that they still get beaten down. So like the effective price is actually worse than 10%. But yeah, it's kind of irrelevant. So what have I learned from this? So I think the enduring mystery was that why have some people, like if you're in the Jehovah's Witnesses and the guy predicts the world will end on Saturday and it doesn't, why do you stay in? Is it just shame? I'm sure this has been well researched, but I think it's also hope, and like LK-99 means something, right? Technological progress and fusion power. None of them talk about that as their reasons for believing. But why do they believe? I think they feel they've been lied to by authorities through their life, which is something I've definitely felt. Like, if I were a physicist, I wouldn't believe this dark matter crap. I mean, I literally catch myself thinking that. I would investigate modified Newtonian. That's where the cool stuff is, right? Because like dark matter seems like a crappy theory, but then I listened to a 4-hour physics podcast, and the guy was like, "When I was undergrad, that's exactly what I thought. Like, I'm not going to be these conservatives that have these like crazy theories that are impossible to explain and validate, like string theory and dark matter. Oh no, I'm going to do the cool stuff." And then when you get to there, you're like, "No, their position makes sense. Like based on what we can see, this is what it is." And but so the yeses just like haven't got to that point. I mean, they're not. They want to believe that they've been lied to, which like in the meta, I agree with. Like in general, I agree with that frame. You should be fighting. You should be independent. Mm. That's another reason I enjoy this. It's because it allows me to take a position which I don't normally take. Right, like I'm enforcing like the normal view that this is a fake result. I'm not backing the long shot. But again, like how could I be wrong? So let's really spend some time thinking how I could be wrong. So yeah, the scenarios like these were way up thread like from weeks and weeks ago. I can't get to it, but I did outline these scenarios. So number one, they're suing each other for commercial credit, and they literally have a gag order on them from lawyers. That's plausible. That really could be happening, and this really could be yes. Now, that's not sufficient, right? Because for this to be yes, and all the replication procedures to have failed, they additionally have to be like very careless with their paper, or be working under a system of ulterior motives, where they wanted to publish the paper because they submitted it. Even before the paper leaked, they also submitted it with the intention of getting it published. So you can't like say like these are money making guys. Like clearly some of them are not money making, right? They want to get Nobel Prize, they want to get cred. So if they want to get Nobel Prize and cred, why did the paper not work? Lack a bunch of details, and why have they not created the paper? Like it doesn't make sense, right? So the legal lawsuit thing, it's like it sort of makes sense. I mean, maybe some of them want to do it, some don't. It could be that like the faction that wanted to publish is being sued by the faction that wants the cred, or maybe they registered, they have lawyers, and okay, so that's number one. So that's like it's definitely possible. It really could be yes. Like this literally could be yes. It's just a very convoluted story. Number two, security. What if South Korean state security heard about this, tapped their lines, like living right next to North Korea, like I'm sure state security is a big deal. I mean, they don't have like the First Amendment, I assume, over there, so everything is tapped. Like this is it's a nation at war, and they just roll in, they confiscate all the samples, they say none of you guys can leave the country, none of you guys can talk to anybody. That's it. We're taking it. We'll commercialize it in our own time. We'll license it to the U.S. in return for like a defense. It could be that, but the problem is not a single person makes that argument for what's happening. And like we don't know anything about South Korean, CIA or whatever it would be, like economic protectionism organization, like MIDI or something in Japan. So, if that's happening, please make an argument that it's happening. You as an American are totally free to say that over here. If there's any data at all about it, has it ever happened before? There's just absolutely no support for it. I completely made the idea up, retconning, like, basically. It could still be true. So what else? I guess those were the main ones, right? The other one is like extreme despondency and depression on the side of the researchers, but they want a Nobel Prize. So they're like, it's real. Oh yeah, the forgetting method. The forgetting method is strong. That they created like a single sample, which works sometimes. They can't share it. They don't remember how they created it, and they also have doubts that they're measuring it right. This is the real deal. Like, it's very likely they do have doubts that they're measuring things right, and that it's likely they're just sitting at home thinking, I really, really thought I had it. I see these papers that are like using all this tech that I've never seen, like expensive equipment that's new, like better ways to measure resistivity and stuff. And, what if I was wrong? And I need to go back to the lab and like redo everything and try again and get a good sample before I speak publicly. I wouldn't, I mean, this is tough, right? Because like you're also ego defending. Like the non-ego defense is just like confess, just be like, look, guys, we thought we had something. you guys are right to criticize us. We're going to try, which is what the cold fusion guys said. They were like, we still believe, we admit that we can't repro, we understand you guys can't repro, we want to keep working on it. Like, I don't think they're malicious, and I don't think the LK-99 guys are malicious at all. There's no reason to think that. But, you know, haven't withdrawn the paper, wasting a bunch of time, polluting the reputation of the country. It's just hard for it to be true. All right, so what else we got? Yeah, so we talked about the religion stuff. Okay, so I guess I want to go back to what I said before about really obvious arguments. Like, what really, really obvious arguments are there for things which we just systematically don't accept? So, like, people in bad relationships with each other, right? They're like, or like if you're in a company, you know, you're in a company, they keep making bad decisions. They say they care about the users, they say they care about the environment, they say they care about their their employees, but they don't. They keep screwing people over. You definitely are mind warped. I mean, you know, my sort of big theory evolutionarily is that people are actually, this is an intended behavior. So people are somewhat intended to believe things. They sort of test the waters of what the like belief environment is like, and then they conform, and then that part of their brain just rewrites their consciousness so they think like it's reasonable. So when everybody says they believe in God, even though like it's trivially false, they just say, sure, I believe it. Both, you know, get along and go along, but also having artificially high coordination and cooperation in a society is pretty beneficial, right? Like viewing everything as just this nihilistic zero sum game is super net negative on a global societal level if you believe in group selection, all that stuff. But yeah, I mean, group selection wise, like having people who automatically believe whatever the dominant person claims is good. What about if you're in a small tribe and it's led by like an extremely like narcissistic, you know, kind of psychopath who says like he's the best person in the world and you can't challenge him and like he's leading the trip to paradise and you know anything that goes wrong is your fault. Well, in an environment like that, I mean, when you're not strong, if you're a kid or like whatever, an outsider, you can't physically challenge him. So, and if you like reluctantly conform, well, he'll know that you're being reluctant. So it's actually like good for you to just pre-conform thoughtlessly. You know, could something like that be going on here where people, um, it's just so far afield. Like these guys are just like random researchers, right? You don't need to believe what they say. You're free. It's okay to say like you don't believe, and it's okay to say no. You know. But so yeah, this last comment's just me speculating about that. Like very very speculative, right? Like you know Theranos. Oh, this is more about like once we got in the channel, we could see what was going on. All right, so let's look at these markets. Let's just look at the derivative markets profitability. So yeah, we got the pull, we got the market size thing. You know, it shot up to 5K traders, the main market, but it's totally dead there once Twitter kind of died out. These are all these like traders wise. All these drop ones have been very successful too. Like if you have a drop goal, like will the market go sub 7? So many of those hit. Like as the night comes by, people start to say like, wow, like the price is, you know, the probability of dropping below 20 is like really low. I could get like 40 to 1 on that. So what if I like buy some of this yes, and then I spike the price down just for a second? I might profit, you know, and you sort of start to think like, so these derivative markets are quite distortionary, I believe, in the on the instantaneous sense. Maybe they don't affect the long-term average of the market, at least the way they're written now, but with enough interest in a derivative, the main market actually becomes just a sideshow. You know, if you have a lot of Twitter pressure pushing free cheap money into derivative markets, the main market is just like totally a toy boat in like a tsunami, just being moved around to achieve the goals of the derivative. But you know, long term in these markets, it's still early days, right? Like the theory behind these markets is sure, giving away free money gets you a lot of bad quality predictions, and people who just buy, you know, they go long in LK-99, and every day they reinvest their loans and they're longer. And if it turns out no, like they're negative a huge amount of money and they'll just leave the site and never come back. That's quite bad, right? Because you're giving people leverage to just like bet, you know, you're giving them a one-sided profit bet basically, where you never capture the downside. So Manifold definitely loses a lot, but still in the long term, um, better predictors will win more money, right? And the hope has got to be that the long term defeats the growth short term. Well, that said, there's a lot of people in the world, right? I mean, 8 billion people times 50 free mana or 500 free mana plus a bunch of like free other mana you can get from just doing anything. That's a lot of market distortion that you can keep up for a super, super long time. One counterbalance is just that you can also buy mana, right? So like, I mean, Bill Gates could just like buy $1 billion worth of mana and fix all prices, or distort all prices. Some super in some opposite direction. All right. So it looks like we're getting pretty close to done here. The other really fun thing has been just like seeing Manifold grow. I mean, the site has grown by a large percent. So the site's grown. Look at this, dude. I mean, DAUs goes from like 820 to 1500. That's double, right? And you can really tell, like looking at my notifications queue, it's just super fun. Like every day, some really big stuff happens. Things resolve. I mean, this is just like a continuous stream. Some of this is significant. Like I bet on this Prigozhin. A couple days ago, Prigozhin died and Trump tweeted. That was like super epic. I've got these super fun Midjourney markets I've got going. I've got my Mega Bridge. You got to see this Mega Bridge stuff. I'm pretty proud of this Mega Bridge stuff. So Mega Bridge is also they fixed tags, right? So tags work super good now. They used to be groups. So I just created these. I looked at the map and I just said, think of all the ways that a bridge could be created in the world. Create a market for each one by 2030, 2040. The real price of these is all got to be like 5%. Like they're so unlikely because these projects take freaking forever to do. But AI, singularity, anything can happen. I mean, can you imagine building a bridge connecting Japan to South Korea? Like cutting off the sea lanes or like literally being poised above the ocean, ready to shoot down on any ship going below you. That's insane. And also how destructible. Like this is just like, I mean, these are all. I would bet nobody bet yes. Oh, wow. So people actually, well, these are both fake people, so that doesn't count. But like, has anybody actually bet yes? No. This guy realized he somehow got himself committed to betting in every one of a whole bunch of people's markets. So he just like yeeted a bunch of money at random positions. Okay, so this is real, but that's because we count Kinmen County, which is like a little island right next to PRC. So yeah, that's super fun. Yeah, so stats are going up, generating a lot of activity. So people think of this as like a betting futures market, but actually it's Twitter and your newsreader. So like if I go to this market and I click yes, replicate word of the year, yeah, sure, I'll say yes. So what this means is now I will get notified every time there's a comment. And that means, people that are experts and who super care will just be spamming my notifications with like real data. And I'll know within a few minutes when real stuff happens. Sure, it's a waste of time and blah, 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 but it's pretty fun. It's worth. All right, well, that was a good rant. Hopefully future Manifold rants will be much shorter. And I still hope that LK-99 is real and we get to enjoy a bunch of semiconductors. It would hurt a lot to like have a negative ginormous. I mean, my balance would be like, I think I'm 50,000. I think I have a loan of like 70,000 from this question, and I have like hundreds of thousands of money. Yeah, loan of 75,000. So if this rolls out, yes, like I don't think I'm ever recovering, but it'll still be a better world. I mean, the worst world would be it's commercially unusable and it's yes. But all right, signing off.